What's up, everybody? Thomas here with Elderwood Games, and this week I want to talk about completing my goals and also doing the weird thing. So basically, my October goals were to compete in Armies on Parade, which I talked about in last week's video, and to complete my Tyranids backlog, which I did do. So I do have some of them with me today. So got my Hormagaunts. I'm not going to show all 10 of them, but they are all numbered with their specific kind of grouping. And I do that just so that way I can very easily remember which ones are where if they end up next to each other on the battlefield. And then I have my Norn Emissary. And this is one that I used the Milliput on for the base, along with a little bit of UV resin. And kind of like, I don't know if I mentioned this in my last video when I talked about it, but I'm not sure if Milliput is going to be in my like stash of materials to use ongoing. I wasn't super impressed with it. It was very easy to work with, and it did get the job done. But from a cost perspective, it just felt like it was really expensive. I actually ended up using a full thing of Milliput between these two bases, which 2 bases for $8 plus resin plus paint plus all that. I don't know. I'm not really convinced that that's what I want to be doing going forward. But on this Terrain Effects as well, I also added in orange missiles for his Stinger salvos on his back, just to kind of differentiate him a bit from my current Terrain Effects. And I just didn't feel like painting the green on there that day, and I thought orange would be a cool color. I cannot believe how big of a relief it was to get them off of my chest and have my Tyranids backlog fully caught up. So now I am done with Tyranids, at least for now, obviously. I do think I'll be adding to that army at some point in the future, because I do really enjoy the Tyranids, and there's a few different ways I would like to play them, and there's some models I definitely want to get my hands on that I may or may not play this edition. It might end up being into next edition, where hopefully they keep some of the detachments that I didn't get to play in this one in that one, but we'll see. But basically, kind of like what I talked about last week, is I did hit a plateau, and I was just really just ready for it to be done. So I kind of forced myself to power through, and I told myself you cannot start any new project until these are done. And I did it. You know, I finished those and I was super stoked, and then I ended up going ahead and beginning my next project, which is Horus Heresy. Some of the guys in my shop are getting into Horus Heresy, and I kind of got persuaded into buying into it. But honestly, the models for Mechanicum are so sick that I really don't care. I thought that they'd be fun to paint and fun to do, and I feel like Horus Heresy has a bit more of the grimdark aesthetic than like 40k does. I know they're both technically grimdark, but something about the 40k armies, a lot of times it feels like you can get away with less grimdark with them. So I kind of wanted to lean into this grimdark idea for my personal Mechanicum army. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. I was playing around with some color schemes, and this is where I kind of decided to just kind of go with the weird idea that I had, which was basically my Mechanicum being maybe not so financially blessed by the Empire, and they basically have to scrounge and like scrap metal off the battlefield to make their repairs and that sort of thing. So my Mechanicum, I've got the Ursa Rex cohort started to be painted, and like my main scheme is that lime green for energy and visors, this sort of dark silver, and then the navy blue, and that's like my main colors for them. But each model has 2 additional colors of armor that have basically been scrounged and scavenged from the battlefield. So it gives them all sort of this unique look, and sort of this idea that, you know, as things get broken, they repair it with what they can find. and giving them all a unique look. And also, I did take some liberties and, gave them each kind of more unique posing from what comes in the box, just because I felt like these would be a little bit cooler, and I wanted them to feel sort of extra dark, in case I ever wanted to, instead of being Imperium focused, moving into Dark Mechanicum, which could have been also very fun. So there's another one there. So I had them put together. I summoned them basically right after I finished my Tyranids, because I ended up finishing them pretty early at the shop, and I had my box of Mechanicum stuff ready. And after I finished it, I was just kind of there hanging out, and so I borrowed some stuff to build them and built them there. So I built those at the shop and painted them, and then I built and painted this guy just within the last couple of days. So this is the Phalanx with the Plasma Mortar and Dual Bolter. And I honestly, like, if I were to have a coherent color scheme, I think the navy, this army green, and the yellow gold that's on some of the arm bits, I really like the way that this one turned out. They're not completely completed. I still want to brighten the lime green on some of the LEDs and the lights and some of those kind of areas before considering them fully done. And of course I have to base them. And I do think I'm gonna base them in sort of a Mars-ish kind of thing. So sort of a dusty red kind of color. I think that'll really pop the miniatures a bit more and just kind of give them a little bit of a different aesthetic from the rest of my armies. But yeah, I just kind of was testing colors, and I had a couple of them painted with different schemes in mind. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I kind of like the mismatched kind of thing. I know in previous videos I've talked a little bit about like a Skittles kind of army where there's a bunch of different colors in there. But that was just to be kind of funny in a way. But this kind of gives it a reason to be, and sort of is adding to the lore of the army, like the story of them. And my plan as well is to, as I face opponents, is to get, like, take colors from their armies and then put them onto my models. So basically, as I play other people, I am like salvaging the metal and the debris from our battle and adding it to my army. So then there is also this like story element where it's like, oh yeah, I got this black plate from playing against this opponent, or I got this like brass weaponry from this opponent, and kind of giving some degree of I'll be figuring out a way to like randomly sort of assign the different plates across my army. I kind of like that idea, and I think it'll be kind of a fun way to have the army evolve over time and not be one that is kind of set in its ways like most of my other armies are. Most of my armies, actually all my other armies right now, are basically, once I'm done painting them, like they're done. I've repainted some of my Tau, and there's some that I might still repaint in the future. For them, it'll just be a constant kind of project. Whether or not I end up enjoying Horus Heresy, I think it's going to be a cool army to have, and I'll likely keep the army with me when I'm at the shop, just in case other people want a Horus Heresy game and I'm in the mood for it and that sort of thing, because it does seem like it'll be a really fun game. There's a lot more depth in it than 40k, it would seem, and I'm excited to give it a try, even with the mixed kind of reviews about 3rd edition Horus Heresy. I am excited to give it a go. So hopefully I'll have what I have for them, which I got the box of Ursarax cohort, and then I also just got the Combat Force box, which honestly ends up being a pretty sweet deal. It's like these two boxes together are just shy of about 1,000 points. There's ways you can kind of bump it into 1,000 because there's so much granularity in points. But then once you get an Archmagos, the like character warlord for the Mechanicum, it bumps you over 1,000, which most games are played at 3,000 points, but I know that I'll be having some skirmishes and stuff at smaller sizes to get the hang of the game, and I've talked to a few of the guys to do that as well. So it is pretty exciting getting into a new game and having something that like feels fresh with the Mechanicum. It is robots, but it's like so different than the Tau. Like these are kind of like grungy, sort of diesel punky kind of robots, and they're really quick to paint. I mean, I painted all these guys. I think even the big guy overall really only took me about an hour or two to paint, because it's just the black prime, a dark metallic overbrushing, a lighter silver metallic dry brushing on some of the highlighted areas, blocking in the colors, then doing a black all over wash for grunging it up, and then doing some like sponging of the darker metal to give some paint chips, lighting effects with the lime green. I'll touch those up and then they'll be done. Finally having an actually quick painting army feels like an ultimate win for me. But yeah, if you have an idea that seems kind of odd to you, just go to your local Warhammer store, maybe pick up the free mini of the month, whatever it may be, and just test out that color scheme, or find a model that may be in your backlog. Or what I do sometimes is I'll just take the sprue of a kit that's already been cut. This is a fresh sprue for some of the other Mechanicum models. But if it has like extra bits that I'm not using, sometimes I'll test paint schemes on the sprue, because it's like I may not ever use these sprue anyway. And it's a good way to kind of see on the models you are painting, like the geometry, the kind of aesthetic of them, what it's going to look like when you actually do paint the actual models. And that's actually how I end up finding my Tau scheme finally, was just doing that, like painting on there and doing the edge highlighting and being like, oh, I actually really like the way this looks over the dirty grunginess that I originally had. I hope that kind of encourages you. You know, don't let, you know, other people get in the way of your expression on your, I mean, it is a hobby, but it is also kind of an art in a way. And, you know, I was an art student. That's what my degree is in. And while you can communicate with other artists and other people within the community, you shouldn't let them dictate how you experience your hobby. And you should own kind of your decisions and own the creative choices of those things, because ultimately that's what's going to make you satisfied with your army. Because even if you paint the most beautiful army anyone has ever seen, if it's not what you wanted to do, you're still going to have a little bit of that, like, you're just going to have that little bit of like, not sure about it. At least I would. I know you guys may be different, and let me know down in the comments if you've experienced something like that, where you've painted something that maybe was someone else's kind of idea, and sort of how you interact with that. Was it a positive experience? Was it kind of a negative experience, or maybe a little lukewarm? But thank you guys so much for watching today. Next week, we'll talk about my goals for November and how I kind of plan to do that on top of some of the holiday mess that happens here in America and having family and stuff over. So I'm excited to talk you guys through that, and I will see you guys in the next one.